Hi there, this is Mr. Walkman, and welcome to this video. This time I will show you how to get started with AdaptiSound. Well, to install AdaptiSound, you must first go to the GitHub page. I will leave the link in the description of this video and download its release version. Then move the add-ons folder to the root of your project. Additionally, the download comes with a demo, which is the same one that I will use in these videos. Take a look if you want. Once inside Godot, go to the project settings, plugins, and activate the plugin. Let's move on the main panel. Here we must assign the directories for the audio files that we will use. The files will be preloaded and saved in the dictionary to be used later. I recommend that you separate the files into three categories: BGM, ABGM, and BGS. We can see the phone files with this button. Keep in mind that ABGM only loads TSCM files. This because the adaptive tracks will have to be created separately and saved as a scene. We will see this later. On the other hand, it is important that there are no files with the same name, because when we want to play one of these files, we will have to call them with the same name that appears here. Next, we have audio buses. We can assign an audio bus for each category. This will help us to have a better control of the audio. Here, we can choose the extension of the audio files that main panel will look for. Finally, we have these three buttons. Debugging shows us the debug of the plugin in the output. ABGM support will allow the use of the adaptive nodes for the BGS category. The save button that saves the change made in the main panel. It is important to save the change because otherwise Audio Manager will not update the audio files data. Once we have configured the main panel, we can move on the singleton Audio Manager. This singleton is a scene because every time an audio is played, Audio Manager will add an instance in one of these nodes. Now, let's see the script. Here we will basically have all the global methods that we can use to manage music and sounds. Play music. This function is to start playing the music from the beginning. We will only need to give it the name of the track that we want to play. Remember that it is the name of the file. In this case, it will be parallel base. So, we start the program and the music plays from the beginning. If there is a track playing, then it will change the track. Additionally, in the second argument, we can assign the volume of the track. The third argument is the fading time for the track to be played. And the fourth argument will be the fade out time for the previous track. In this way, we can make a smooth track change. There are two additional arguments, but these only affect ABGM tracks, so we will see them later. If we want the track to be a loop, then we can add set loop function after the play music, like this. But this function will only affect OGG files and MP3 files. If you want a WAV file to be a loop, you must change the settings when importing the file into Godot. If you press play again while the same track is playing, nothing will happen. The track will continue normally. If you want the track start again, you will have to use reset music. Basically, this function restarts the current playback, and you can choose the fade time. Stop music. This function stops the current playback. The first argument defines whether to fade out or not. The second argument is the fade out time. And that's it for VGM. Now, let's see how it works in-game. The code is simple. In the first level, the music is played at the start of the scene. Then, when the player goes through exit, we'll go to the next level. Here, the music changes, because when level 2 starts, another track is played. And in this void box, I added a stop music when the player enters, and a play music when it exits. And there is. VGS only has two methods. Play sound. With this method, the audio signal in the first argument is played from the beginning. This method is the same as play music, but it allows to play sounds parallel to the music. If you want to stop the track, you can use stop all function, but we will see this function later. Okay, how to create a BGM track? Well, let's start with the Adapti nodes. This is parallel track node. The main function of this node is to play multiple tracks at the same time. And with the audio manager methods, control the different layers. To get started, you will need to add a parallel layer. You will be able to manage the volume of each layer separately, and you can add the number of tracks you want in each layer. If, for example, I have this layer called bass, and I add 2 tracks, when this layer is played, all these tracks will be played. If I want to separate them, I have to create another layer with another track. Playing type. If always, it will play when calling play music function, and it will always be active unless stopped with stop music function. Always plays from the beginning, but won't necessarily be listening. That's what the layer on property is for. If triggered, it will only be active when calling the play layer function. Audio streams. Here you add audio files. Layer on. If true, the layer will be listening from the beginning when called the play music function. Loop. Assign loop mode to a layer. Groups. You can assign custom groups to each layer and then call them with the mute layer function. Let's see this example. Here I have a parallel track with 4 layers. The first one is called base, and it consists of a single track, type always, and that is heard from the beginning. The second layer, named organ, is a single track, type always, and I disable layer on because I don't want it to be heard from the beginning. But in that case, why not use the trigger type? Because if I use trigger, the track will play from the beginning and will get out of sync with the base layer. Instead, always type means that the 2 tracks are synchronized and playing, but only some of them are being heard. Let's continue. The third layer is the same as organ, with another track. And the fourth layer is a trigger. I disable loop because I only want to play once. Having made our track, we will save it in the directory that we chose for ABGM. And now we go to the playback methods. Well, first, all BGM functions can be used for ABGM tracks. So, to play the track, I use the play music function and write the TLCN file name. This way, we can switch between ABGM and BGM tracks. Let's see. Mute layer. With this function, we can make a layer sound or not. First, we must write the name of the main track. In the second argument, type array, write the target layers. You can write the names of the layers, the index, or your custom groups. If you want to affect all layers, then leave the array empty. In the third argument, we decide to mute the layers or unmute them. And in the fourth optional argument, we have the fade time. In this case, depending on the state of the button, the layer assigned to each button will be muted or unmuted. Let's see. Play and stop layer. I recommend using these functions only for trigger layers. Otherwise, the tracks may be out of sync with each other. Play layer function plays from the beginning of a layer, and stop layer stops it. In this case, I will use play layer to play a last layer of my main track. Those will be the main functions of parallel track. Now let's go to the last node. The main function of AdaptiTrack is to play this following structure. Intro, it is a track that plays only once and can only be stopped with a track change or with a stop method. After the intro, go to the loops. In this section, there may be multiple loops, but only one track will play at a time. So, if you can change from one loop to another, you must call the change loop method. And to finish the track, we can add an outro. This track will play only once and can only interrupted by change loop or stop music. To go to the outro section, you must call toOutro method. So, how to create AdaptiTrack? First, we can create a scene with the AdaptiTrack node, just like with parallel track. In the inspector, we can see the following properties. Intro file. Here you must add the audio file that you will play it as intro. If you leave this parameter empty, then the track starts from the first loop. Outro file. Same as intro. But if you leave this parameter empty, using toOutro function will stop the track. Finally, we have loops files. This parameter is different from the others. You can't add audio files, because the loops are resources of class base audio track, and you will have to create each loop. Here, you can create a new loop. In audio file, you must assign the path of the audio file. Track name is the name of the loop. In BPM, you have to write the beat per minute of the loop. Metric is the number of bits within a measure. Total bit count is the total number of bits in the loop track. An easy way to get it is to multiply the total number of bars per metric. Keys loop in measure. In this property, you can assign keys to a specific bar or measure. When the change loop method is called, the track will be changed only when the track goes through one of these keys. Keys end in measure. Well, same as with case loop measure, but with the function toOutro. Okay, now let's see this example. This is a finished adapted track. It has an intro, 2 loops and outro. In this case, the 2 loops have the same BPM and metric, but it is also possible to use 2 tracks with different parameters. If you look here, the first loop is set to change only at the start of the next few bars, and the second loop has the same configuration. Now, we must save the scene in the avgn directory, and let's see the methods. Just like before, we use play music function to play this track. But for this track, we have 2 extra optional arguments. Skip intro. If true, the track will start from the loop, and with loop index, we can choose the loop that follows after the intro. Change loop. This function is used to switch from one loop to another, but it can also be used to return from the outro to a loop. You just have to write the name of the main track, followed by the index of the loop. All other arguments are fade options. To outro. This function is to change from the any loop to the outro. You only need to write the name of the main track. All other arguments are fade options. And finally, stop all function. With this function, we can stop any track of any category. And optionally, we can assign the category in the first argument. The second argument is fade time, and the third is can destroy. If true, the track will be removed from the tree when finished. And that's it. If you have any question, you can leave it in the comments. Or you can also read the documentation if you want. Thanks for watching.